What is happening at this hour, what is certain, is that the trial that could end up being the only criminal trial that the ex-president faces before Americans go to the polls again in 2024 is the one brought by Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg over falsifying business records to cover up hush money to a porn star and keep that story silent ahead of a national election. Former National Enquirer CEO David Pecker is still on the stand. He's now being cross-examined by Donald Trump's team. Pecker today was asked at length and in detail about the catch-and-kill scheme that he hatched in a meeting with the ex-president and Michael Cohen, Trump's former fixer. Pecker detailed how he purchased the story of Trump's alleged affair with former Playboy model Karen McDougal for $150,000. And then this happened. The lawyer for the prosecution, his name is Joshua Steinglass, asked Pecker, quote, was your principal purpose to suppress her story so as not to influence the election? Pecker, yes, it was. Steinglass then asked, were you aware that expenditures made by corporations for the purpose of influencing an election are unlawful? Yes, Pecker responded. Then Steinglass, the prosecutor, asked Pecker why he bought McDougal's story. Pecker said, we purchased the story so it wouldn't be published by any other organization. We didn't want the story to embarrass Mr. Trump or embarrass or hurt the campaign. All of this laying the groundwork for what happened later in 2016, when Pecker heard the story about Trump and adult film star Stormy Daniels. Now, keep in mind, Pecker heard about it one day after the Access Hollywood tape exploded the presidential campaign landscape when it was released and made public. The Trump campaign was in frantic damage control mode. Pecker said that Cohen, in that time period, asked him to pay for Stormy Daniels' story. And even in that frantic damage control moment, Pecker refused, telling Cohen, quote, I'm not purchasing the story. I'm not going to be involved with a porn star. And I am not, which I reiterated again, a bank, paying out a doorman, paying out Karen McDougal. We are not paying out any more monies. Pecker said Cohen was upset by that. He said the boss would be furious with me. As we now know, Michael Cohen ends up using his money to pay Stormy Daniels $130,000 from his own funds to keep quiet. The story stays quiet ahead of the election. Now, the ongoing criminal election interference hush money trial of the ex-president is where we begin this hour with some of our favorite reporters and friends. You should know it's still happening. And we have the developments up on your screen. Close watchers of this show know, do not usually have a computer on the set. It could prove very distracting, in which case I'll slam it shut. But we are monitoring this in real time. We have the help of our most favorite reporters and friends. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard is outside of the courthouse with me at the table, host of the Fast Politics podcast. Special correspondent for Vanity Fair, Molly Jong-Fast, is at the table with us. Also, we are working him into the ground, I know, but we need him desperately. Former top official at the Department of Justice, MSNBC legal analyst Andrew Weissman is here once again. Let me start with you, Vaughn Hilliard. In what is, I have to stop reading these transcripts when I'm walking around because I'm that person, you know, that's looking at their phone and people behind them get so mad and people, but just tell me, why don't you start with what's happening now and then we'll widen the lens and go through the day.
The cross-examine from Donald Trump's defense team is actually underway right now. Granted, they only have about 30 minutes. They are expected to wind up about 26 minutes from now. Court wraps at 4:30 p.m. today here. But this is the moment. The examination, I should say the prosecution's opportunity to ask questions of David Pecker is now wrapped. And I can tell you the number of details that were not previously publicly known are quite astounding. We wondered if there was maybe one phone call potentially or message between Donald Trump and David Pecker. But we know after his 3 days of testimony now that there were multiple, that there were also meetings at Trump Tower in December of 2016. There was a meeting at Trump Tower in January of 2017. And the fact is that there was also an immunity agreement between the district attorney's office and David Pecker going all the way back to October 2019. We were wondering the extent to which he as a witness was working with the prosecution to help build this case, and we now have a pretty clear answer. David Pecker, the longtime friend dating back to the 80s, somebody that they had a relationship going back into the 90s about stories that would appear in the National Enquirer. But there was one notable line for me coming out of this, among many, I should say. But the most notable line had to do with one of those phone calls between Donald Trump and David Pecker. And it was in March of 2018 when Stormy Daniels did an interview with Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes. After that, David Pecker testified today that Donald Trump called up and was furious about the fact that that interview had taken place because he had an agreement with Stormy Daniels. I just want to read the quote of David Pecker's testimony. He said that Trump said, quote, "We have an agreement with Stormy Daniels where she cannot mention my name. And each time she breaches the agreement, she owes Donald Trump $1 million. Just 1 month after that Stormy Daniels 60 Minutes interview, Donald Trump aboard Air Force One said he didn't know anything about the Stormy Daniels-Michael Cohen arrangement and placed the blame on Michael Cohen. But what David Pecker just testified to today was the fact that Donald Trump was intimately involved with the agreement there and was aware of it and called it our agreement, meaning him, Michael Cohen, and Stormy Daniels, and that this was not simply just a Stormy Daniels-Michael Cohen agreement.
Andrew?
This reminds me, you, me, and Vaughn were on air. It feels like 4 years ago, but I think it was 2 days ago.
17 years ago,
yes,
yesterday, a.k.a. yesterday.
Yes, where George Conway related
yes.
the same type of story where he and his wife were invited to dinner with Jared and Ivanka, and he said the president called to say, "Are you watching this?" And so he clearly was. This is, it's exactly the same time frame. But I think Vaughn has it exactly right, which is that you have the DA sort of bringing Donald Trump directly through direct evidence. It's not through Michael Cohen. You have a witness saying, "I spoke to him." This was reaction. He was like, essentially, "What in God's green earth are you doing? Why did you release her? Why is she speaking?" And that also explains why Stormy Daniels was not being released. It explains the sort of the difference. But also to Vaughn's point that he later denied it, you can be sure in this trial we're going to see that false statement, because when you're a prosecutor and you're trying to get mental state evidence, there's nothing better than, oh, I have a credible witness who says you knew it on X date, and I can show that right after that you were lying about it.
I mean, the other thing that I can't get over, and I keep reading this, I'm going to read this to you, Vaughn, first, is how involved the White House staff, paid for by the American taxpayer, was in catch and kill. This is a note from our colleague Lisa Rubin on Sarah Huckabee Sanders' role and Hope Hicks's role after the interview that Andrew's talking about, after McDougal's interviewed by CNN's Anderson Cooper. Pecker said he conveyed to Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Hope Hicks that he wanted to extend McDougal's contract. This is her catch and kill contract. And both Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Hope Hicks, White House communications staffers working for all of us, the taxpayers, thought it was a good idea to extend McDougal's hush money contract. Pecker testified that he felt extending her contract would prevent her from saying bad things about American media and Trump. At that point, Trump relented and said, "It's your business," essentially telling Pecker he could do what he wanted. The timing of these conversations was muddied through the testimony, but apparently happened before March 2018 when McDougal sued AMI, resulting in a settlement through which McDougal reclaimed her lifetime rights. The idea, Vaughn, that the White House press secretary and communications staffer were involved in the details of a catch and kill scheme is extraordinary.
Right. Yet another detail that we in the public were unaware of, that Sarah Huckabee Sanders allegedly was involved in these conversations around Karen McDougal's contract. Again, it was March of 2018 that Anderson Cooper did both of those interviews with Karen McDougal and with Stormy Daniels. And the testimony from David Pecker is that Donald Trump was frustrated by both. And I think that this speaks to the human element of this, right? And when you're talking about non-disclosure agreements, well, humans be humans. And clearly between November of 2016 into 2018, Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, they wanted to go forward with their lives. They wanted to share their stories here. And Donald Trump was frustrated by the fact that they were not locked down and that there was a conversation over how to keep Karen McDougal quiet, and that there was even a lunch between Karen McDougal and David Pecker and the editor-in-chief of the National Enquirer, where they were discussing potentially how she could continue to elevate her role within the American media business empire, but while also not talking about Donald Trump. And so all throughout the first year of Donald Trump's administration, we as the public did not understand the lengths to which Donald Trump allegedly was working with Michael Cohen, with Hope Hicks, with now Sarah Huckabee Sanders, to try to continue to keep the full story of these individuals, their alleged affairs, and the alleged hush money payment to keep them silent before the 2016 election from the public, not only in 2016, but 2017, and using the White House in 2018 as well.